Today's lesson is, are 18-year-olds ready to vote? Hello, everyone. I'm Mike.
I'm Roger, and today we're talking about voting, and that's when you cast your ballot, okay? Basically, you go submit some kind of document at a voting station, a polling station, and you tell the government who you want to represent you in a certain office of the government. You vote for the president or you vote for your local representative or whatever. But the question we're asking today is, are 18-year-olds ready to vote? Should we extend the voting age to 18-year-old people instead of the age it is now? What is it in Taiwan, 20 or 21?
20, which is already a little bit older than most countries. I think most countries that are democracies. Of course, here we're talking about democracies where they have elections, where people vote for their leaders, both, in the city, like the mayor, and of course, regional politicians and presidents and things like that. So most countries like that, the voting age is 18. But in Taiwan, it's 20. It's slightly older. I know Canada, America, Britain, it's 18. Actually, in Britain, I've heard a debate about lowering it to 16, in fact. So other countries are thinking of making it even younger. But in Taiwan, it's a little bit older. It's 20. So you have to be 20 years old to take part in an election whenever they have them, every 4 years or so. But there is talk, there is sort of debate right now about lowering it to 18. And so we're going to be reading an article over the next 2 days. And in the article, we'll be hearing a few different opinions from different Taiwanese people, different ages, different jobs, different areas of society, and hearing what they think about this idea. Are they for it? Are they against it? And what their reasons might be for changing the voting age. So what do you say we get into it?
Let's get into it. Let's listen now to the introductory paragraph, and then we'll come back to talk about it.
Are 18-year-olds ready to vote? In 2022, a referendum was held on lowering Taiwan's voting age from 20 to 18. The proposal was voted down, but debate over the issue has continued in recent years. Those in favor of the change say it could help promote young people's participation in shaping their future. However, those against it worry that younger voters might not be ready for such a responsibility. Here's what people are saying.
大家好，第一部分介绍名词 referendum， 它的意思是公民投票。例如After months of debate, the government agreed to hold a referendum. 经过数月的争论，该政府同意举行公民投票。再来看到名词 proposal， 表示提案、提议或是正式的建议或计划。例如 I have a proposal for the next book to read in our book club. 我对于我们读书会下次要看的书有个提议。后面看到名词 participation， 它的意思是参与或是参加。例如We need more people for the event, so we'd appreciate your participation. 我们那场活动需要更多人，所以我们会感谢你的参与。另外介绍这个字的动词 participate, P-A-R-T-I-C-I-P-A-T-E, participate. 例如 Sarah was excited to participate in the school talent show. Sarah 很期待参加学校的才艺表演。又或者说 Lucy rarely participates in company events.Lucy 很少参加公司活动。
Okay, so the question is, are 18-year-olds ready to vote? Are people who are 18 years of age ready to vote? And should we allow them to vote in elections? Well, here in the first paragraph it says, in 2022, just a couple of years ago, a referendum was held on lowering Taiwan's voting age from 20 to 18. Now, a referendum is kind of like an election, but you're not actually voting for people, you're voting for ideas. So they presented this issue to the people. Do you think the voting age should be lowered to the age of 18? Yes or no? So they had this referendum back in 2022, and that was the question. Should the voting age be lowered to 18?
That's right. Of course, referendums are something that they often will have in conjunction or at the same time as they have an election, and they seem to have a lot of referenda. I think that would be the plural form. They seem to have quite a few of them here in Taiwan, and often they're about sort of emotional issues issues. I think there was another one on gay marriage, right? And people voted on that, and more people said, yeah, gay people should be allowed to be married, so that referendum decided that issue. It's often a sticky sort of personal, social question that the politicians are like, we don't want to make this decision for all the people because, everyone has strong opinions about this, and the politicians don't want to be responsible for having a lot of people in the country angry with them if they make the wrong decision. So they kind of throw it out to the people. And it's an interesting way of having really direct democracy. Normally, politicians will vote on policies and new laws, but in some cases, they'll sort of give that responsibility to the people, and they'll have, as Roger said, basically an election, but not an election for people or for political positions, an election for an idea, a policy, or a new law. So they had one of these back in 2022, asking people if they wanted to have the voting age lowered from 20 to 18. That was the question on the referendum. That's what people voted on. And in that case, 3 years ago, they voted no. It says the proposal was voted down. When something is voted down, they don't agree. They don't approve of it. There are more people saying, no, we don't want this, than there are people saying yes to this proposal. A proposal is basically an idea that I have or you have or a group of people have. We think it's a good idea, and we're putting it forward. It's kind of like a suggestion, but it's a bit more formal. It's a bit more organized. At a company meeting, the staff might have a proposal that every Friday we come to work in casual clothes, or we're going to go from a 5-day week to a 4-day week. With the 5th day, everyone gets to work at home, and we kind of put that idea out and see what other people think. We're not saying this is the way it must be, but we're saying this is what we think is a good idea. What do you think? What is your opinion on that? So in this, that question, that opinion was disapproved of by the majority of people in Taiwan. But the question, the debate over this issue has continued in recent years. Just because people disapproved of it 3 years ago, other people have kept this idea alive. And, as time changes, maybe people's opinions change too.
Now, those in favor of the change say it could help promote young people's participation in shaping their futures. Of course, there are people in favor of this proposal, and there are those who are against the proposal. So those are the people who are in favor of the change say it could actually encourage young people to participate more in the political process. Participation is the act of participating in something, taking part in something, being a part of something. So basically they're saying that, hey, if the voting age is lower, then people will say, hey, we need to have more of a voice in government. We'll be participating more in the decisions in our country, and we won't be outsiders so much. That's what people who are in favor of this change would say.
However, the people who voted no, it said, however, those against it, or the people who voted down, many of them worry that younger voters might not be ready for such a responsibility. They're only 18. They don't have a lot of life experience and wisdom. They can't make clear and logical decisions on this. So they're not ready for such a responsibility. They're still kids, in other words. So that's the other point of view. And I'm sure there were, different versions of that. But that's basically what the main issue was. They're just too young to vote. They're too young to have that responsibility. Now let's turn our attention to here's what people are saying. Different types of people, different ages, different parts of society. And we're going to start off with Ivy and Jackson, and we're going to hear their opinions in the next part of the article.
Ivy, 32, teacher. In many countries, when you turn 18, you're legally considered an adult. You're old enough to work, pay taxes, serve in the military, and get married. I'd say that it's consistent and fair then to allow 18-year-olds to vote as part of their civic responsibilities.
Jackson, 47, small business owner. I think it's reasonable to say that many 18-year-olds lack the knowledge, critical thinking, and life experience needed to make informed voting decisions.
第二部分介绍形容词 consistent， 表示一贯的、始终如一的或是一致的。可以说 Robert's consistent performance at work is appreciated by his colleagues. Robert 在工作上一贯的表现受到了同事的赞赏。又或者说 The new recipe helps Lisa achieve more consistent results every time she baked a cake. 这个新食谱帮助 Lisa 在每次烤蛋糕时都能做出更一致的成品。接下来看到形容词 civic， 它的意思是公民的、 或是市民的。例如 Jenny considers it her civic duty to encourage people not to litter. Jenny 认为劝人不要乱丢垃圾是她的公民责任。往后介绍形容词 critical 指的是批判性的或是批评的。举例来说 The professor took a critical look at the research carried out by his students. 该教授以批判性的眼光检视自己的学生所进行的研究。或是 Critical thinking helps us make better decisions. 批判性思考帮助我们做出更好的决定。
Okay, here in the next part of the article, we've got the opinions of Ivy and Jackson. Let's start with Ivy. She's 32 years old, and she is a teacher. Here's what she says. In many countries, when you turn 18, you're legally considered an adult. That is true in lots of countries, of course. They consider you an adult. You're no longer a child when you turn 18. And she says you're old enough to work, you're old enough to pay taxes, and you're old enough to serve in the military, and you're old enough to get married. So yes, indeed, you can do things that adults do. You get to have a job and make money. And then, of course, you have to pay taxes to the government in order to afford those services that the government provides. You also can serve in the military. You can be drafted or you can serve in the military when you're 18 years old. You can be a soldier or you can get married. You can find the woman of your dreams and get married and have kids and things like that. This happens when people are 18 all over the world. And she says, I'd say that it's consistent and fair then to allow 18-year-olds to vote as part of their civic responsibilities. So she says it's consistent. Okay, that means it goes in line with those other things. It just makes sense. If you can work, pay taxes, if you can get married and serve in the military, then you should be able to vote at the same time. That's consistent. It's along the same lines of those particular privileges.
There you go. If you're going to be treated like an adult, then you should also have the freedoms of an adult to vote for your leaders, right? So that's what she's saying there. So it's consistent and fair then. If we're asking 18-year-olds to do all the other things that adults do, we should also give them the right to vote. So it's consistent then to allow 18-year-olds to vote as part of their civic responsibilities. And civic is kind of talking about society and government. It could relate to cities. We might talk about the civic government being the mayor and the city councilors. But in a bigger way, it talks about the rights and responsibilities of people. When you learn civic education in school, they're kind of teaching you what it means to be a citizen of the country, the things you're allowed to do, the things you're not allowed to do, the values of the country and their culture, and that type of thing. So part of your civic responsibility is to obey the law, pay your taxes, vote, hopefully, if you can, that type of thing. So kids become adults at 18, then they should have everything that comes with being an adult, not just paying the taxes and the serving in the army, all that other stuff. If they're being asked to go off to war, they should at least be able to vote for the leader who sends them off to war. And I think there's a certain logic in that. All right, now we're going to turn our attention to Jackson. He's slightly older. He's 47. He's a small business owner, so an entrepreneur, something like that. He says, I think it's reasonable to say that many 18-year-olds lack the knowledge, critical thinking, and life experience needed to make informed voting decisions. That seems to match up quite well with the general opinion of the people who voted down this proposal back in 2022. Kind of the opposite of Ivy. Kids, 18-year-olds, they're kids. They're children. They don't have the life experience. They don't have the knowledge. Many of them are still in school. They're still living with their parents and things like that. They lack critical thinking skills. They're not able to sort of look at things and understand different points of view and different aspects of complicated issues or questions. When you have critical thinking, you're able to look at a situation from different points of view. You're able to assess it in different ways or look for different solutions that would meet different goals and things like that. So it's basically higher level thinking that younger children wouldn't have. And often, yes, it comes from, as Jackson says there, life experience, from learning from your past mistakes. And if you're a young person whose biggest responsibility in life up to that point has only been making sure my math homework is done, then maybe you don't have the ability to make these informed voting decisions. Do kids read the newspaper? Do they watch the news? Do they understand how government and the economy and all these big important things work? Jackson says no, so we shouldn't give them the responsibility of voting for things they don't really fully understand. An interesting point of view.
And of course, if you're 18, you're still in school, and maybe you don't have any life experience. So I guess he thinks that after you graduate and have a job for a while, you'll be able to make more informed decisions about your leaders. Okay, let's move on now to Karen, who's 19 years old, and she's a university student. She's actually older than 18 and younger than 20. This will be an interesting point of view. Let's find out what she has to say.
Karen, 19, university student. Young people should have a say in their future. I mean, look at the state of education, climate change, and the job market. These are all issues that heavily impact young people. Allowing 18-year-olds to vote ensures that their perspectives are included in shaping policies both now and over the long term.
第三部分看到名词 perspective， 表示思考问题的角度、观点或是想法。例如 Professor Foley's book offers a unique perspective on the effects of technology on society. Foley 教授的书针对科技对社会的影响提供了一个独特的观点。也可以说 Harry and Meghan always argue because they see every issue from totally different perspectives. Harry 和 Meghan 总是在争论，因为他们从截然不同的观点来看待每个问题。
Okay, so again, it's Karen's opinion, and she's a student in university. She has graduated from high school, and now she is in college or in university. And she says, young people should have a say in their future. So if you have a say in something, that means you're part of the decision-making process, okay? So maybe your parents decide that you're going to be a doctor or something like that, and you don't have a say. I want to be an artist. I want to be a singer. Nope, you're going to be a doctor. You don't have a say in this. In other words, you don't have any opinion. We're not going to let you have an opinion. You just have to do as we say.
Okay, yes. Well, young people, she thinks, should have an opinion, and people, we should listen to it. We should respect their opinion or the kind of things that they want for the country. Just because they're a little bit young doesn't mean that that's not important. Here she gives some examples. I mean, as a sort of lead-in to her examples, I mean, look at the state of education, climate change, and the job market. She picks three important topics that really do affect young people a lot because they're young. I mean, their education, of course, is important because they're often right in the middle of it as they're going from high school to college. So that will definitely be a near-term issue for them in the next few years. Then there's climate change, right? People who are 70, 75 years old, they're allowed to vote, but they might be dead in a few years. And if we're talking about things about the environment, climate change, transitioning from coal power or oil power plants to renewable resources and things like that, these will have long-term effects going way, way, way into the future. These will definitely affect young people's lives for many, many decades. And the job market, the same thing. Well, an older person, they might be thinking of retiring soon, whereas young people, they haven't even started their career. So the economy, the job market will have a very, very direct impact on their lives for a very long time to come. And as she says, these are all issues that heavily impact young people, not just now in that election year, but for many years to come.
Indeed, and she goes on to say, allowing 18-year-olds to vote ensures that their perspectives are included in shaping policies both now and over the long term. So she says that if you allow 18-year-old people to vote, well, that will guarantee, will ensure that their perspectives are included, that they are taken into consideration. Your perspective, of course, is your point of view. And she thinks that, yes, 18-year-olds have a unique perspective that should be included as part of the decision-making process. And yes, indeed, they can help shape policies now and forever in the future. So that's her perception here. She does think that 18-year-olds should be given the right to vote. I have a feeling, though, that usually this decision is probably made by the government, and they'll look at it in terms of how they can win elections. So if they lower the voting age to 18, they're probably thinking that 18-year-olds are more likely to vote for our party than the other party. So yeah, we support lowering the voting age, and then, of course, the other party would be against that. I just have a feeling that that's how the decision would be made.
That is absolutely true. There's a lot of self-interest in how these politicians make their decisions and formulate their policies. And you're right, what is good for one party this year might not be good for the other party, but 5 years from now, who knows how things can change. But these are certainly three very interesting perspectives or points of view that we've gotten to hear from three different people in society. And that's not all. We're going to have a few more tomorrow, and so please come back and join us for that. But for now, let's go over to Hanny and hear her point of view on all sorts of things, both vocabulary and grammar.
各位同学大家好，我是 Hanny。 我们来看今天的文法重点。课文一开始提到，在2022年，台湾曾就下修投票年龄从20岁至18岁举行了公投，该提案被投票否决了。好，那文中用到名词 proposal， 它可以指提案、提议或是正式的建议或计划。它的动词是 propose。 我们这边来学它的字首字根。首先 P-O-S-E， 好，这个字当名词它有姿势的意思，那它当字根则有 put 或者是 place， 表达放置摆放的意思。那在 propose 这个字当中，字首 P-R-O 表示在点点点之前， pose 表示放置。当我们把想法计划向前放在前面摆出来，应该可以联想到 propose 它有提议建议的意思。那也顺便补充几个相同字根的单字。第一个 expose， 它的字首 EX 表示向外， pose 表示摆放。那向外摆放对外展示，应该可以联想到 expose 它有使暴露或是揭露的意思。第二个补充的是 dispose， 它的字首 DIS 表示分开， pose 表示摆放。那把事物分开摆放，就会有整理、安排或是处置的语义了。好，第三个补充的是 oppose， 它的字首 OP 是来自 OB， 从 OB 变形而来。那么 OB 它有朝向或者是反对或妨碍的语义，字根 pose 表示放置。那同学们可以用这种放在对立的位置去联想 oppose， 它有反对、对抗的意思。好，在课文第二部分和第三部分都有使用到 allow 18-year-olds to vote 来表达说让18岁年轻人投票。这个动词 allow 它有允许、准许的意思，常常用 allow somebody to 加原形动词表达允许某人做某事。那被动语态则是 somebody be allowed to 加原形动词，就可以表达某人被允许做某事。举例来说， You're not allowed to take photos here， 这里禁止拍照。好，另外 allow somebody to 加原形动词其实还可以表达让某人得以怎么样，能够怎么样。像是 working from home allows him to spend more quality time with his family， 居家办公让他能够有更多的时间陪伴家人来共度美好的时光。好，那我们也补充一下片语动词 allow for 的用法。首先 allow for 可以表达使变的有可能，例如 The new system allows for more efficient data processing， 新的系统能让资料处理更有效率。好，那第二个我们可以用 allow for 来表达考量到，把什么什么计算在内，也就是在做规划或计算时把某事物考虑进去。例如 Please arrive early, allowing for traffic and parking. 考量到交通状况和停车，请提早抵达。好，那以上是今天重点整理，我们回顾今天单字吧。
Proposal. William made a proposal to buy more sports equipment for the gym. Participation. Caleb felt happy when the teacher noticed his participation in group work. Consistent.Aurora tries to be consistent about eating healthy meals every day. Civic. The local civic organization is raising funds for the construction of a new library. Critical. Hazel gave a critical review of the movie because she thought the story was confusing. Ensure. Isaac wears a helmet to ensure his safety while riding his bike to school. Perspective. Listening to different perspectives makes people more understanding.
Well, that brings us to the end of another edition of our program, and please make sure you join us again next time. From all of us here, I am Roger.
I am Mike.
See you next time.